welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Giorgia Maffini. I'm here in Madrid, finally joined by Horacio Peña, PwC Transfer Pricing Services Global Leader. Welcome, Horacio.
Good to be with you.
Horacio, so we are seeing the global business landscape undergoing very dramatic, very rapid changes. And all this is driven by technological disruption, regulatory disruption, very important for us, and climate change. And this all affects, of course, how businesses can create, deliver value. So from your unique point of view, how do you see all this affecting the transfer pricing landscape?
Yes, Georgia, exactly. It's just massive change, right? We're in the fourth industrial revolution. The mega trends are coming all together, all at once. And again, the technological disruption is, in addition, we have geopolitical tensions, right? We're in the middle of a trade war, US-China, tech war, China-US, that's impacting everything. So the trade flows, as you know, have changed dramatically, both in volumes, as well as the composition of trade. As we were saying before, back from the OECD, right? It was not just 50 years ago, it was just commodities. Now everything is embedding with technology data flows. So the nature of globalization has changed dramatically, and we are deglobalizing, and we are basically regionalization is taking place. So the rate of change of new related party transactions, of different related party transactions, also the hierarchical central model of the corporation being massively diffused across the globe, people working from different locations, different functions, digital roles has never been faster, biggest change, biggest challenge. On top of that, we are living in an age of massive deficits, as you know, $35 trillion deficit in the US, maybe 20 trillion in Europe. So we're moving in this era of massive enforcement. As a result, tax authorities, as you well know, have added tremendous amount of resources. The nature of audits and enforcement, the data that is required for these audits has never been greater. Literally millions and millions of pages of evidence, information, contracts, people, functions. So the landscape has been very, very challenging. I think what we're seeing with companies right now is that once, unfortunately, you go through one of these very difficult audits, it's a completely different realization. My favorite word is deliberate. You have to be really deliberate about controlling your data, controlling your process, controlling your governance, being able to analyze, synthesize it, explain it to stakeholders. And there's no question, right, that the only way we're going to solve this is with technology. The data is there, the algorithms are there, the AI is there, but we need the user case. Tax has to define the user case for developing these solutions to be able to manage the situation and be able to excel. And also, quite frankly, we're moving from a world of, again, static taxation to continuous taxation. And we realize that the expectation gap between what tax administrations want is enormous. So we're also seeing a movement from minimum documentation to what I call sustainable documentation. We have to go beyond minimum documentation to be able to create the audit defense, the different pieces of evidence that we need to be able to tell a story in a clear and compelling way.
That's great, Horacio. And can I challenge you a little bit more on that? So how are companies at the moment in this difficult environment trying to align their transfer pricing models, their transfer pricing practices with ever-changing business models and challenging, and also align, of course, with their stakeholders' expectations?
It's a challenge, right? But some things have not changed as well. We all believe that if a taxpayer controls their facts and circumstances, they have a very high likelihood of sustaining the positions. The challenge is, how do you do that? Because there's so much that's changing at the same time. So part of it is you don't have to reinvent the whole rocket. You just have to focus on what are the key things that are changing and make sure you're all over them. And so, for example, digital assets is a key. We're talking about AI in this conference as well. Emergence of digital assets all over the world. Some of them are generic and will be treated as routine assets. Others are critical part of the business model reinvention assets, ways that the companies are using to monetize, generate new sources of revenues. There are very smart people, thought leaders, executives that are running those businesses, and whether they're small right now or large, they're running big businesses. They're running value creation of the future. And so be able to capture that now when it's early, to be able to understand who are these executives, who are these leaders who are running these new businesses, what are those digital assets, who is paying for digital assets, should we concentrate them in a hub, should we disperse them across 100 countries, how these things are going to be out in the future is important. So making sure that we are ahead and not behind this transformation is going to be really important to achieve our tax objectives.
And moving a little bit towards sustainability. So we have said it many times, companies can no longer ignore the effect of sustainability on their operations. So from your transfer pricing perspective, what are the opportunities? What are the challenges of sustainability, transparency? And maybe you can give us some real life examples of how sustainability and transparency have affected business models and value chains.
It's a very exciting area. It's hugely concerning, as all the research the PwC has done in terms of what would happen to the world in the next 10 years if we don't meet our carbon goals. But it's hugely exciting because it's so amazing the type of innovation that we're seeing in sustainability. It's just it gives hope to the world in terms of all the things we need to do. So it has a number of so many impacts. Number one, which I was saying before, we're looking at localization, right? Because the first thing in sustainability is globalization is changing in a radical way. So there's just that changes the whole supply chain because companies are really much more focused on localization and their carbon footprint. One of the most exciting things is, again, I think everybody's going that way. The only question is there's some companies who are making more headlines, they have bigger programs, more aggressive plans. We see a tremendous in industrial product sector, right? If you're a service company like PwC, there's only so much we can do in terms of reducing our travel, for example, and things like that. But if you're an industrial complex, conglomerate, there's just so many things you can do across procurement, supply chain, manufacturing, raw materials, and everything else. As you know, we're very actively involved in many different business model reinvention projects and supply chain projects with very exciting technologies. Anything, for example, I was involved in a value chain transformation project where basically this company is replacing plastics in a very significant way using innovative organic materials. And blending, we're still using some plastic, but we're using a lot less plastic. So they're blending the plastic with organic materials. Now, in order to produce that product at a lower cost also, to be effective and competitive, you can imagine that it required third-party IP, third-party licenses, third-party technologies, collaborations with other third-party companies, and then a dedicated innovation team. So what we're seeing more and more, many clients are coming up with these innovation dedicated hubs where, for example, they will be using third-party technology, they will be using third-party digital assets, AI and other things. But then the user case is the most important part of innovation. So for sustainability, the engineers, the technicians from the companies are saying, this is how we need to do, we can massively improve this. It has an impact on supply chain, it has an impact on manufacturing, more importantly, the corporate brand around sustainability, our carbon footprint, we can meet our goals. And again, I think we see almost everybody involved in one way or the other, whether you're a giant company with a big splash, $500 million initiative, or there are others that are moving slowly or in smaller pockets. The challenge is that sometimes it's happening, you can't see it. I think the biggest challenge for me and for companies that I'm seeing is opacity or lack of information. So if a company doesn't have a big program and the CEO is telling everybody this is what we're doing, they're actually doing it, but it's in pockets and you don't see it. And so if you're sitting in the tax function, tax department, you don't see it. And so the challenge would be to reach out to, yes, some companies have a sustainability czar or an executive, others don't. And that doesn't mean they're not doing anything. And the part of it is to work with them to identify those opportunities and analyze them. There's also a lot of tax efficiency that go into that. As you know, we have a JBR with a company called EXA, which is a very, very powerful tool to do operational transfer pricing. And they have one of the most advanced and impressive modules for carbon capture. Mm-hmm. So if you have SAP or you have ERP systems, we have ways to extract that information. And if you have a transfer pricing policy, we can extract that information. And as you know, PwC has been very active with the green databases and all the work you do across the governments to collect information around carbon capture for different processes and procedures. PwC has a point of view on sustainability in all those areas. And we've been working with clients to help them capture and quantify this. And if you're lucky to use EXA, one of these tools to do it directly from the ERP system, it's going to be very effective. So I think we're moving to an era of the ultimate truth. What is the ultimate truth? It's transaction source data, either from the trade floors or from the ERP system. And I think to me, right now, the only way to really get to that is to link our carbon capture policies straight from the transaction as reflected in the ERPs.
That's great, Horacio. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for tuning in so you can be global tax ready.